Peace. This is King Noble Black Supremacy, and I want to do this particular video addressing Imam Bashir. A lot of things that he say I agree with him on. I want to start off with that because it always sounds like my videos that I'm attacking somebody versus criticizing. To criticize somebody, they got to be at least worth criticizing, which means there's some fundamental basis that you could possibly or potentially agree with them on. So I want to preface this with what I agree with him on. When he talks about the blackness, I agree with him on that, on what we're up against as a people, and how a lot of the Moors, I call them new school Moors, and the legal prescriptions that they try to apply to our situation are not going to work. They are ineffective and inaccurate. I agree with Imam Bashir on that. The whole sovereignty piece, what we're up against as a people. I agree with the arguments that he make against Lord Abba on that. No question about that. We in total alignment with that. I'm seeing where he's coming from. But if that's really his premise, that we black no matter what in America, and that's how we're going to be treated by our melanin and by how the devil looks at us, no matter what paperwork we fill out, no matter what calls of ourselves, then that means that we're going to have to go to war with the devil. There's no remedy or solution but ultimately going to war with him to fight and stand up for who we are. We're going to end up going to war with this devil, unarguably, if he feels that way. But there's some problems with that being his belief. There's some problems with that, and I'm going to go into that. Major problems. Secondly, I don't know how he addresses the Noble Jew Ali situation with his teacher being a pale Arab, and he has all this blackness, talking about we black and we nation building and all that, but he claims to be an Ahmadiyya under a pale Arab. So there's two contradictions there. One, the solution, if Lord Abba is not right with some political prescription or remedy, is warfare. But his teacher taught against jihad and said the only way we're going to defeat the enemies of Islam is through the pen and through literature. This is what his teacher said. Ahmed Ghulam. So his teacher was against jihad and was looked at as a traitor or an agent of the British because of his anti-jihadist movement. So if he says that the legal prescription of work is not going to work, of teaching people about nationality and teaching them who they are, which is what Prophet Noble Jew Ali brought, if that method is not going to work, then the only other solution other than that is jihad and warfare. And Imam Bashir's teacher is against jihad, so he would be contradicting his teacher. And I'm going to go into that a little bit in this video. And second, he can't talk about all this blackness and loving black people and ourselves and our nation, and you worship a pale Arab. This pale Arab considered himself to be the Messiah, the Mahdi. The Muhajir. He considered himself to be a prophet after Prophet Muhammad and the return of Jesus Christ. This is Ahmed Ghulam, or Ghulam Ahmed, or I don't care to pronounce this pale ass Arab's name right, but you'll get that in the video. He said he was the Messiah. Now it's bad enough you got people arguing like Ali Muhammad that Prophet Muhammad was black, right? They try to make that argument. And here it is, your boy Imam Bashir is doing even worser. That now the so-called successor, or the one who come after the Prophet Muhammad, which would have to be the last of the prophets if he don't see Prophet Noble Jew Ali as a prophet, as definitely a goddamn pale Arab. Damn near looking like a Caucasian, Persian. He's doing the same Elijah Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad thing, still worshipping the pale Arab. This is a fact. And that's where I don't agree with Imam Bashir. That's where we fall out at. That you talk about all this blackness and how blackness is divine and all this and original and Lord of the perfect black, and here it is, you are worshiping you got a pale Arab Messiah. You got a pale Arab Mahdi. You can't be as black and on black nationalism and black nation building as you say you are. And then while you bow down to the pale Arab, you go and try to debunk our illustrious melanated prophet, dark olive prophet, Noble Drew Ali.
Noble Drew Ali. Traditionally, it was believed that Timothy Drew was born on January 8, 1886 in North Carolina, USA. Accounts of Timothy Drew's ancestry variously describe his being the son of 2 former slaves who was adopted by a tribe of Cherokees, or the son of a Moroccan Muslim father and a Cherokee mother. Founding the Moorish Science Temple, Drew reported that during his travels, he met with the high priest of Egyptian magic. In one version of Drew's biography, the leader saw him as a reincarnation of the founder, while in others, the priest considered Drew a reincarnation of Jesus, the Buddha, Muhammad and other religious prophets. According to the biography, the high priest trained Drew in mysticism and gave him a lost section of the Quran. This text came to be known as the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, which is not to be confused with the Islamic Quran. It is also known as the Circle 7 Quran, because of its cover, which features a red 7, surrounded by a blue circle. Drew took parts of his book from the Reciprocation work, into the I Grant, and most of it from the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, published in 1908 by esoteric Ohio preacher Levi Dowling. In the Aquarian Gospel, Dowling described Jesus' supposed travels in India, Egypt, and Palestine during the years of his life, which are not accounted for by the New Testament. Drew and his followers used this material to claim Jesus and his followers were Asiatic. Asiatic was the term Drew used for all dark or olive-colored people. He labeled all whites as European. He suggested that all Asiatics should be allied. Drew crafted Moorish science from a variety of sources, a network of alternative spiritualities that focused on the power of the individual to bring about personal transformation through mystical knowledge of the divine within. In the interwar years in Chicago and other major cities, Drew used these concepts to preach racial pride and uplift. His approach appealed to thousands of African Americans who had left severely oppressive conditions in the South and faced struggles in new urban environments.
You will have hatred against your own, against your melanated, your prophets that have come among you to wake you up and teach you about nationality and nation building and teaching you to know who you are and be yourself. You talk about that nigga like he ain't shit. You have no respect for him and no honor for him. But then you go and worship a pale Arab that considers himself to be the Messiah or the Mahdi.
Imam 13 February 1835, 26 May 1908 CE was the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement in Islam. He claimed to be the Mujaddid, divine reformer of the 14th Islamic century, the promised Messiah and Mahdi. As opposed to the mainstream Islamic view of Jesus being alive in heaven, Ghulam Ahmad declared that he had in fact survived crucifixion and migrated to Kashmir, where he died a natural death, and that the notion of his physical return was therefore erroneous. He claimed to have been divinely appointed as the Mahdi and Messiah, in the likeness of Jesus in fulfillment of Islam's eschatological prophecies. Ghulam Ahmad's claim to be an in-law-bearing prophet within Islam has remained a central point of controversy between his followers and mainstream Muslims, who believe Muhammad should be the last prophet.
Now, Imam Bashir's Messiah and Mahdi of the Ahmadiyya movement said that he was like Jesus Christ. So that means him being pale with the beard, the way he looked, he felt like he looked like Jesus really looked. This is what Imam Bashir's Mahdi and Messiah is saying. So basically versus the Hebrew Israelites saying that Jesus was black, feet of bronze, hair of wool, feet like they've been burned in the oven. This black Messiah that the Hebrews talk about, Imam Bashir got a pale Arab white Messiah that claims he's in the likeness of Jesus Christ. Now the video that Bashir did at the House of Consciousness talking about Lord Abba, he said Lord Abba has gotten away from the path. But what do Imam Bashir thinks his Messiah did? He's going against what it says in the actual Quran. The Quran said that Prophet Muhammad was the seal of the prophets. The last prophet, the last messenger, the Rasul, or the Nabi. This is what the Quran says. So he's going against Quran and Quranic scholars. So your Messiah and Mahdi has gotten off the path himself. And you are off the traditional, orthodox, and widely accepted path of Islam by accepting Ahmed Ghulam as your Mahdi and your Messiah. So you really gotten off the path. That's a terrible, terrible blatant contradiction. That shows self-hate. So in the front you talk all this black nationalism, all this metaphysical black knowledge and all this, and you seem to have a clear understanding of what we're up against in America and why the sovereignty and the paperwork and all this is not going to work. You seem to be very definitive about what the problem is on the front end, but on the back end you're bowing down to the pale fucking Arab in 2015. It's just not going to work, Imam Bashir. Very hypocritical. It makes the black stuff you talk about sound like rhetoric. When you can't even acknowledge and accept your melanated prophets that have come before you to enlighten you and wake you up and teach you to the knowledge of yourself. You still worshiping some pale, light ass Arab from over east some goddamn where. Am I making this up? Did your Messiah of the Ahmadiyya, did he say he was the Messiah and Jesus and all this?
He traveled extensively across the Indian subcontinent preaching his religious ideas and ideals and won substantial following within his lifetime. He is known to have engaged in numerous debates and dialogues with Christian missionaries, Muslim scholars and Hindu revivalists. Ghulam Ahmad founded the Ahmadiyya movement on 23 March 1889. The mission of the movement, according to him, was the revival and propagation of Islam in its pristine form. Ghulam Ahmad was a prolific writer and wrote more than 90 books on various religious, spiritual, theological and moral aspects. Many of his books bear a polemical and apologetic tone in favor of Islam. He advocated a peaceful propagation of Islam and emphatically argued against the permissibility and necessity of jihad in its military form in the present age. Ghulam Ahmad claimed divine appointment as a reformer as early as 1882 but did not take any pledge of allegiance or initiation. In December 1888, Ahmad announced that God had ordained that his followers should enter into a bay'ah with him and pledge their allegiance to him. In January 1889, he published a pamphlet in which he laid out 10 conditions or issues to which the initiate would abide by for the rest of his life. On 23 March 1889, he founded the Ahmadiyya community by taking a pledge from 40 followers. The formal method of joining the Ahmadiyya movement included joining hands and reciting a pledge, although physical contact was not always necessary. This method of allegiance continued for the rest of his life and after his death by his successors. His claim. Main article claims of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad proclaimed that he was the promised Messiah and Mahdi. He claimed to be the fulfillment of various prophecies found in world religions regarding the second coming of their founders. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's followers say that he never claimed to be the same physical Jesus who lived 19 centuries earlier. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad claimed that Jesus died a natural death in contradiction to the traditional Muslim view of Jesus' physical ascension to heaven and the traditional Christian belief of Jesus' crucifixion. He claimed in his books that there was a general decay of Islamic life and a dire need of a Messiah. He argued that, just as Jesus had appeared in the 14th century after Moses, the promised Messiah, that is the Mahdi, must also appear in the 14th century after Muhammad. In Tazkiratul Shahadatain, he wrote about the fulfillment of various prophecies. In it, he enumerated a variety of prophecies and descriptions from both the Quran and Hadith relating to the advent of the Mahdi and the descriptions of his age, which he ascribed to himself and his age. These include assertions that he was physically described in the Hadith and manifested various other signs, some of them being wider in scope, such as focusing on world events coming to certain points, certain conditions within the Muslim community, and varied social, political, economic, and physical conditions. Post-claim. In time, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's claim of being the Mujaddid, reformer of his era became more explicit. In one of his most well-known and praised works, Barahani al-Madiyya, a voluminous work, he claimed to be the Messiah of Islam. Muslims have maintained that Jesus will return in the flesh during the last age. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, by contrast, asserted that Jesus had in fact survived crucifixion and died of old age much later in Kashmir, where he had migrated. According to Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, the promised Mahdi was a symbolic reference to a spiritual leader and not a military leader in the person of Jesus Christ, as is believed by many Muslims. With this proclamation, he also rejected the idea of armed jihad and argued that the conditions for such jihad are not present in this age, which requires defending Islam by the pen and tongue but not with the sword. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad wrote 2 books named Tuhfa-e Kaisariya and Sitara-e Kaisariya, in which he invited Queen Victoria to embrace Islam and forsake Christianity.
And tell me this, if your Messiah, your master teacher or master of masters, was about black nationalism and all this blackness that you talk about, why did he invite Queen Victoria to join the Ahmadiyya sect? So all this information that the Ahmadiyyas is about black nationalism and all this blackness that you add in there is not consistent with the history of this pale ass Arab that you worship in Imam Bashir. It's not necessarily consistent. You're overlaying that. You're blackening up this pale Arab imperialism.
Reaction of religious scholars. Some religious scholars turned against him, and he was often branded as a heretic, but many religious scholars praised him, like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, among many others who praised him for his defense of Islam. After his death, opponents accused him of working for the British government due to the termination of armed jihad, since his claims of being the Mahdi were made around the same time as the Mahdi of Sudan.
Now, as you can see, Imam Bashir, your Mahdi was an imposter that actually stole the position or tried to take the real position of the real Mahdi, the Mahdi of Sudan, the Mahdi that cut off the head of the British of General Gordon, who was about jihad, who was about warfare, who was running the British up out of the Sudan. So this old lukewarm, pale white, watered down, homogenized, pasteurized Mahdi that you got is anti-black nationalism. So basically what I'm saying, Imam Bashir, is that you have the light-skinned Messiah complex. You are really upholding Arab imperialism, but you putting a black spin on it. You replace the white Jesus with a pale Arab and light Jesus. And the reason you don't accept Prophet Noble Jew Ali is because he's just too melanated. Your enemy has taught you to hate yourself. And now you got these teachers out here where they speaking black, like they got black love and compassion for black. They're speaking and presenting that. But in their heart of hearts, they still love the Arab. It's no different from the Farad Muhammad story. He's liking the pale Arab. You know, he's replaced Farad Muhammad with Ahmed Ghulam. he can't embrace Prophet Noble Jew Ali as our prophet sent to us by Allah. We can't have our own prophet. You know, as a people, we not nothing. You know, we wouldn't get sent any prophets. So I had to go into this. I'm seeing a lot of contradictions